This is the Great Alaska Hunting Podcast. I'm Dalton Gray.
And I'm Ryan Humphreys.
Broadcasting from our hometown of Fairbanks, Alaska. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show. Welcome back for part 2 of the interview with Chiam Loyd. This picks up in the break where we left off with his personal story and details about his background and where he got to where he is. In this episode, we talk more about the gear and equipment that Peax is making now and the directions going forward. So sit back and enjoy part 2. Are you drinking some more Baja Blast?
No, it's Spindrift for me now. I turned over a new leaf during that break. I'm healthy now.
That's because we were talking about RFK, weren't we?
I went to straight water, so.
Yeah, this is some kind of a...
Yeah, I got some blue methylene I put in there.
Some kind of a caffeinated seltzer water, but it's Alaska Glacier. So.
Oh, I thought that was Black Rifle coffee for a second.
No, it's not. It's not Black Rifle. No. Okay, so coming back into the podcast. So now that we've kind of covered your personal story and kind of how you landed where you are now we can talk about some gear things. People are familiar with Peax from our previous podcasts. I've talked about using the teepee that I've got. I've got the original 4-person Peax teepee. I do have the ground cloth that was a later purchase. That was actually a gift from someone for Christmas. I think that was about a year after I had bought the teepee and was using it. And I don't have the Peax stove. I bought the teepee before the new stove came out. And I was actually looking at that the other day. The setup design of the new stove is quite superior to my own. But, it's kind of one of those things that I have what I have for now. At some point, like to change it out, but you know how that goes. And then even before that, back when Peax was not even Peax yet, it was just Sissy Sticks.
Yeah.
Back when the brand was first kind of kicking off.
Okay, can I ask a question just right there?
Yeah.
Why aren't they called Sissy Sticks anymore?
I think it's sort of just a branding thing. I don't know. That was a decision that was made. I guess, no one, just Sissy in the hunting world. I don't know. I still think it's cool.
Yeah. That was hilarious.
He got them when they were original OG Sissy Sticks.
Yeah.
I was watching Brian's thing, him talking about the Sissy Sticks, and I decided, when I finally bought trekking poles, which was honestly not that long ago, I was like, oh, I'm going to order it. So I ordered them, and the URL, I think, still says, or it did a year ago, Sissy Sticks. The URL still says Sissy Sticks, right? But they don't say Sissy Sticks on them. It's nowhere on the website anymore, and it just was very disappointing. I was like, well, why even bother?
Well, I'll have to pass that feedback up the chain. Maybe we can get you some pink ones with Sissy Sticks on them sent up to you custom.
Yeah,
there we go.
I guarantee if anybody of the three of us would use them, it'd be Mo.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. So I bought the original trekking poles, which I finally ended up wearing out / breaking after 2024 fall season. I had broken one of the clips on one of them, and I set them down somewhere off in the far, far reaches of Mordor out in the middle of nowhere. And the plane came to pick me and someone else up, and they got apparently left in a rock pile somewhere because I to this day, I don't know how I missed grabbing them, but I did. And so they were broken, and now they're a goner. So anyway, and then I bought the Gators relatively soon after they came out, and I just got a brand new pair not that long ago. I had worn out just the inside of the ankles where that little reinforced area is kind of stitched on there. It's like a leathery type of material along the inside of the ankles on each side. And I had finally worn through the threading and the stitching that kind of arches on the top of that reinforcement patch. So anyway, ended up getting a new pair of those rather than try to re-sew them myself with my advanced seamstress skills. And but the gaiters were something that really stood out, and that the trekking poles, I appreciate the way that they're made, but there are a lot of people that might look at trekking poles as well as just a trekking pole. Now, the ones I have now, admittedly, I ended up needing a pair of trekking poles between when I wore out my Peax ones and needed trekking poles again about a week and a half later for another hunt. And so I swung through a store and they had a set of black diamonds, some of the higher end black diamond ones, and they are really nice. But there are some features about them, like the threaded ends for the rubber caps on the end of them. They don't have rubber caps, number one, and number two, they don't thread on even if you do have them. So using them as reinforcements in the ceiling of your Peax teepee is a risk that you will run sticking a spike through the side of your teepee if you get high enough winds. So I brought some chunks of duct tape and kind of reinforced and padded the end of that. But that there are some advantages, and it's little subtle design features about the items that I have. Like for instance, the gaiters. I've had issues with gaiters before. I had run Kenetrek gaiters originally, and then I had some Sitka gaiters, then I had Kuyu gaiters, and all of them had a different little problem that I just really came to hate that would wear out relatively quickly, within a half a dozen, maybe 10 hunts. And it just seemed like little things would wear out. For instance, like that under boot strap, that has not worn out. That doesn't even hardly show any signs of wear on my Peax gaiters. That is so thick and well built and rugged that it's not a failure point in my mind. And that there are several other points about the gaiters that we don't have to get into that are big improvements over the things that I used before. And then I had the headlamp as well. I still have the headlamp. I've been wearing it a lot at work the last couple of days, actually.
But you got to be careful using that hunting stuff at work, man.
Yeah, it is kind of a spoiling thing because it lasts all day long on low power, which is what I run it on.
It's really nice when you're using the nice stuff at work until you break it.
Yeah.
Or ruin it.
Yeah, until you get black silicone all over it or something like that.
Or you burn your nice mountain boots with a grinder from shooting sparks on them.
See, I've never done that.
Not with the current pair. That was the old pair, but yeah, that was.
So I suppose that's a look at what I have had, but since then there have been a lot of other things that have come out, and in recent days, the owner of Peax, Bryce, has been on the Initial Ascent podcast. I think it's called the Mountain Dew podcast, and I listened to that just because Bryce doesn't tend to do a lot of social media type of stuff. He doesn't do a lot of interviews from what I've seen. I don't know that I've ever seen more of a long form interview with him like that and those kind of questions about the business. And I was very interested to hear that. And so I guess now from this second half of the podcast, if you will, talk to us a little bit about what Peax is after now, because the flagship products got them on the map. The trekking poles, the headlamp, the gaiters, the original 4-person teepee, and now it's kind of expanded, but it's all kind of been connected, right? You can draw a correlating line to new products from a founding product in a way. So maybe just kind of go off into that for a bit if you want to.
Yeah, that's actually, you hit it right on the head. I think our MO, like kind of our internal, I guess, mantra is to create a system that works together. That's why the trekking poles go into the top of the shelter for stabilization, hanging stuff off of it, all that stuff. That's why the floor is one of the only floors that unzips for a stove, because we did that before we had a stove. We knew we were going to have a stove. And we just were basically, we're building everything that you would put in your backpack. That's what we want to own. We want to own that space of anything that you would pull out of your hunting bag. We want to make it a little bit better, put our own twist on it, make it more functional, make it performance first, that kind of deal. And I think everything we take this approach of, here's the problem. So like with the stove, you were talking about the stove. It's, dude, I've gone down the gambit. The bad thing about me is I always stay broke because I gotta try this gear. Like I have this weird, like a little scratch, like, oh, Light Outdoors dropped the stove. I might need to try that. Even though knowing full well, my wallet knows, I know that I already have a Seek Outside stove. Why, Chiam? These are the questions my bank account asks me all the time. But nonetheless, I grabbed it to test it. And I knew we had a stove in the works too. I was just like, but I need one for this season. So went through the gambit. Actually, I think I bought the Seek Outside on like Facebook Marketplace. So I saved a little bit of money there. But the number one thing with those is they're just so rudimentary in how they're put together, how you put them together, like the assembly of it's frustrating. You can who wants, if the concept is you're cold and you're assembling this object to make you not cold, why would there be wing nuts? Like that just from the very beginning. I mean, and I get it, like everything's got to walk so that something else can run, but both of those products, like the Light Outdoors, that thing, it rips, man. Like it is sealed off. It rips. It'll rip. It'll get some good circulation going in there, but not a flat top. Like it's hard to cook on. Like there's so many drawbacks and takeaways from most of the stoves out there. And of course we have them all in the office. I'm sure I've got some footage of all of us, the whole team, just like playing with stuff, pointing at stuff we have problems with, because everybody in here has used that kind of stuff. Like we know the pain points. So we got this list a mile long of like, what can we change? And that's what happened. And I watched that process go from, originally, like everyone else, we thought 4 legs. Props to Bryce. He was like, why 4? Because everyone else does it. And then it turned into the tripod. It makes sense. Like you don't need that. And then the clamp on legs, it's just genius. Like that was really smart. Captive legs. But yeah, building that to be in the same ballpark ratio wise, as far as like competitive weight, is important too. The fact that we can come close with the features that we have, that's like our goal, is to like surprise people that, oh wow, that only weighs that, like, within ounces of whatever the competitor product was that doesn't have these features. Like there's no question at that point of which one you go for, especially if you've assembled a Seek Outside before. And those, like, at the time it's light, it works, it's whatever. And then the more I've been around, of course I have to film stuff. So if you need anybody to cut your stovepipe sleeve, cut the Kevlar, I've done that a quadrillion times. I've set up the stove, I've set up the TP. It's like Chris Stapleton. I'm so used to it. It's in the back of my head. Yeah, I think that all the product development kind of goes from there. And I think me and Dalton we were on the phone kind of talking about this, like with the Puffy system, like what can you change? Like we've teased it. I'm wearing it. I've got green light to talk about it a little bit. But how do you change a Puffy? And then of course, Dalton, speaking from Alaska, as Alaskans will do, it's all about, wet and rain and drying out, which is a valid point, which we don't have to worry about as much here. But it's concerning. That's why a lot of guys here, you don't see them rocking the same synthetic stuff you'll see guides wear in Alaska. Not to say that they don't here, but it's very, very uncommon. But outside of solving for, I wish we could have a waterproof Puffy that didn't make you soak yourself with sweat on the inside. That'd be great. I don't think the tech's there yet.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, we're working on it, but we can't. I don't think it's going to be this iteration. But we just started with our fabric that we did with a sleeping bag. with Torre, because it's breathable. It seems it's weird. We didn't know this was going to happen until we started testing with this Torre fabric. The breathability, something about it, it just doesn't soak in that external humidity like other sleeping bags tend to do. It's weird, which is always a good thing. Like if that condensation doesn't just soak through, you're all the better. So that's the same fabric, but just little stuff like that. It's just, I mean, we all know it. It's just sad that we can't all contribute something to our own brand. Like if you made your little changes and everyone pitched in and we had this perfect, but we would have solved every hunting problem there was. But we're doing the best we can by taking opinions from guys and people in the field, and everyone in-house is hunters themselves. So we kind of know, and we go from there and just try to get that performance balance of, yeah, it's lightweight. You can backpack, but it's going to outperform everything else.
So, there is a specific question that that I brought up to you probably in December when we were talking. So this was over a month ago at least at this point, probably early December really. And I don't know if you remember the exact conversation, but I brought up a question that I came up with through someone else's suggestion about a fabric. And there are obviously no shortages in the industry, whether it's the hunting side of the backpacking world or the alpine mountaineer type backpacking world on the other side of it. There's no shortage of floorless type shelters. From what I have been able to see, it does seem like setup is easier with the Peax 4-person specifically. I don't know much about the new 6-person tent or the 1-person, although the 1P looks like you'd have to just be a complete moron to screw up the setup. I mean, it looks stupidly simple. But the 4-person, compared to what I've seen from other more circular type floor plans of teepees, it does seem like that semi-rectangular footprint to the 4-person teepee is very intuitive. I had never set up a teepee before in my life, and I remember I bought that 4-person. I think it was the summer of 23, just ahead of that deer hunt, because I wanted a shelter that was, number one, big enough for my wife and I to sleep in on short cots that were a little bit off the ground. I wanted to be able to have a stove in there because we were going to bring in Duralogs with us, because I expected Southeast Alaska to rain the whole time on us. And we didn't get rain in 5 days of hunting. So we brought all those Duralogs and chopped all that firewood on, same day airborne. And I think I burned one fire in the tent at night just for the sake of it. There was no need for it. And as a matter of fact, it ended up being a really cool picture, because here we had a beautiful, clear, starry night with the mountains and that amphitheater and the lake in the background. And there was the teepee and a red, fiery glow inside the teepee. And it made for a neat picture, but the heat was not necessary. And I found myself opening both tent doors because I couldn't fall asleep. It was way too hot in there. And then on the last night, we were like, well, we got all this firewood and all these Duralogs, and we're not going to fly all these Duralogs back, and I don't just want to leave them out here in a pile. So we burned them all. But it was nice to have that option, right? To be able to have the option to dry out on a potentially and normally very wet type of hunt. That option is awesome. And so that setup design of that semi-rectangular footprint, I think, is another one of those things that, yes, you could build just another teepee, right? Anybody can build a teepee. It's arguably the oldest movable, packable type structure that you can just be mobile with, right? I mean, obviously back to early American Western exploration, what did all the explorers find on the Western plains with the Native American Indian tribes? A lot of them lived in teepees. It's easy to put up.
Yep.
It's relatively sturdy in the wind. That circular design does well in a lot of environments, and you have the ability to leave the top open and vent out with a smokestack. And so that there are a lot of
Easy to make
advantages.
out of buffalo hides.
Yeah, exactly. you can put some sticks together and wrap stuff around it, and there you have a teepee. But I've also seen a whole lot of problems with extreme high wind environments with other brands of teepees, where basically the stakes look like they're staying in place and the peak looks like it's staying in place, but everything else is just doing this crazy wavy action in the wind. It feels like there's almost no structural integrity to it because all your guy out points are within the bottom quarter of the tent hem, if you will. And so the Peax one has higher guy out points and more guy lines on it, more spots to stake it out. And I'm a big fan of mini stakes. Many stakes make good sleep. That's an old saying. But then reinforcing the top end of it with the trekking poles. I mean, when you have that thing tightly staked out, and then you add the trekking poles in there, and you pop those things out, and you put a little bit of elbow grease into that setup, it ain't going nowhere. To quote the old redneck wisdom, it ain't going nowhere. And that's not something that I really expected with a TP style tent. And so that there are the cynics out there that will say, well, anybody can make a TP, and what's so special about this TP versus that TP? And unapologetically, I did kind of buy into one of these questions, and I know you have an answer for it, so I'm curious to hear it. The one thing that I took away from this individual's question was why the fabric that you guys chose, because in a couple of environments that I've had my TP in, specifically like late September, where it's cold, it's wet, and then it gets warm and dry at some point. And so when it's warm and dry and you pitch that teepee, it all stretches out nicely, and it forms well, and it's nice and taut, and it feels like you could just take a quarter and just bounce it right off the side of that thing, and it'll just come shooting back at you. But then it'll rain for a day, it'll drop 15 degrees in temperature, and you wake up and the whole thing just feels a little bit slack. So that's a fabric flaw. You could possibly call it a flaw, or you could call it an advantage, and I hadn't looked at it from the latter side. So explain to me what the fabric is, what the purpose of it is, and why not the other option that you and I were talking about, because what you had to say made a lot of sense.
Yeah. So, and that was like off the top of the dome. And then I came back and I started actually looking back through notes and talking to Bryce, because he's like you, Dalton. The dude is immaculate with detail. Like, he's the guy that takes the extra time to set up. And when we camp together, I just sit back and let him set up camp, and I know that it's going to be perfect. Me, I'm like, cross trek. It's only 20-mile-an-hour winds. I'll sleep through it. And then, you know how that plays out. We've all been there. Corner comes loose, and I'm like, oh man, yeah, I definitely should have done some cross trek in there. But no. So I hear a lot of people say this. Actually, my office right here is kind of close to the showroom, so if I want to listen to customer interactions, I can. It's a common question: why the sil nylon versus sil poly? Because sil poly is arguably probably the dominant fabric right now in tent. Like, big dog would be Dyneema, but like your affordable, I guess, level, just depends, like entry level fabrics would be your sil poly, which is very common. We actually tested 20D, 30D, 40D sil poly at the beginning of this. I didn't even know it. I'm just, I was just taking out a sample, and anyways, that sample ended up ripping from wind pressure, actually. Crosstrek was in, pressure has nowhere to go. Basically acts like a sail that can't unfurrow, I guess, if you will. And it ripped at a pressure point we had zero expectations of it ripping at. So it all really came down to, like, the sil nylon checked a bunch of boxes for us. One, it was the greatest strength to weight ratio we could find, period, as far as holding up. And we had guys abusing this thing. I mean, for a whole season of different prototypes, it's out on the mountains, it's out in the snow. We had one set up in someone's backyard for an entire year, and then we took it out. And the number one thing that kept coming back was they were like, look, there's the drawback of maybe some adjustments. And that's where we started to design around that. So because that flaw, it is a flaw, but in the same coin, the flip side of that is its strength. So we designed around that because its strength is, dude, that thing can take insane winds. I've been in these teepees and we should be blown off the mountain, and it is somehow holding strong. There's some footage on the launch video. I think we're in there. We're too scared to burn the stove. This is a prototype. We're too scared to burn the stove because we know that this thing's just about to fly off the mountain. I mean, the way you can't really tell unless you were there, but my eyes, it's not a look of confidence. If you look closely, I'm scared that we're about to get blown off the mountain. But stayed. And I mean, that thing, if you could put that on a boat, it would sail across the ocean. I mean, it was ready to take off. So, and it held, not rip on a seam, not nothing. And we're taking notes and taking pictures, and we're like, this is insane. This is crazy. Like, in our experience, most fabrics would rip, and like, why? And so we went back, and designers and Bryce go back and forth, and it's this sil nylon has more give to it. That is what gives it its sag during temperature fluctuations. But in the same token, that's also what makes it so element resistant, I guess you could say, with heavy winds, which is the number one. When you've hunted enough, you know, it's like, oh, I'm scared of the rain. No, it's not really the thing. I'm more scared of, I feel that wind picking up, and I'm like, oh, great, here we go. That's the kicker for me. And like I said, I've been in that TP many a time, and I slept like a baby now that I know what it's capable of. So anyways, we designed the guidelines like you were talking about around this cloth, this fabric, knowing that it did have the weakness of sag and temperature fluctuation, but we were willing to trade that off for the absolute durability, toughness, plus the, puncturability. All this stuff is better. It's a grade above sil poly for all that, and it comes in this particular sil nylon fabric that we're using. It comes in almost exactly the same, if not less weight per square foot than sil poly. So it's like at that point we were like, performance, like I said earlier, performance is really what drives this. So we could kind of care less if it's a little saggy for the pictures, which obviously that's kind of my thing to worry about. But I could care less about the pictures because the tint's not going to be there if it takes off. So if I have to trade a little bit of sag in the morning, and that's why it's so adjustable. All the stakes, all the guy out points, all the lines, extra lines even. I've never undone those extra guy lines on any of my TPs. I've never had a need to, but they are there. I've never done the top four corner. I've never had to use those. Never used them.
Oh man, that's like diff lock for me. That's awesome stuff right there. I'm a big fan of, dude. Yeah.
How many stakes do you carry with your TP, Dalton?
I don't remember because I didn't do anything with it last year, to my own shame.
You didn't do the count out?
I don't remember. I do remember this though. When I got the TP, I was putting one stake out per line, with the exception of the big W lines on the side, right? Those I'll just run a single stake for. But everything else, I run a single stake to. And I've seen some other guys that tend to kind of double them up here and there. And, this line is in parallel with this line on the ground, so they'll kind of double those together. I don't like how that all kind of pinches things together. I like to have everything on its own line. Because
so was it like 12 stakes then, you think?
I want to say that it came with 12, and I ended up putting more in my kit with it. And I also changed out the small lightweight stakes that it comes with for the big MSR groundhogs, the big red ones. Those are the only stakes that I have ever used with success compared to what I started with. I have used some of the little orange Hilleberg lightweight stakes,
Those
which
are
I'm pretty
impressive
sure
for.
are the same thing as the Peax ones are. They're the same dimensions, same size, same style. And those worked really well for like pitching tarps. But for me, there's just an element of personal security that I know I will sleep better at night if I know my stake in the ground is that long versus that long. Um, the worst night of my life in a tent was actually not a terrible night at all compared to what it could have been, but I was in an MSR freestanding dome tent, and it was blowing easily uh, over 70, 80 miles an hour. It was ripping. I didn't empty my pack at all when I got in my tent. I ate a protein bar and drank half an Nalgene of water. I was on top of a mountain sheep hunting, and I slept or tried to sleep with my puffy gear on and my rain gear on and my boots and gaiters still on. Like I fully expected at any point in the night to have to just wrap up my broken tent, stuff it in my pack, and hike to the valley just to get out of the wind. And it didn't break, but I think part of that is due to the fact that I have probably oversized stakes for the job, and I tend to overdo it. Like if I think it's going to get super rowdy at night with the wind, I'll go out and spend 40 minutes picking up giant rocks and come build a rock pile around, and just really try to shore stuff up. But yeah, I think it comes with 12 stakes, but I'm pretty sure I have more than that in with my TP bag. Pretty sure.
Yeah, I think I carried. I don't remember how many I carried into the mountains with me last year, like 20.
Mm-hmm.
Enough for a tent. Enough for a tent plus tarp if I needed to.
Mm-hmm.
If I was going to leave the tent set up or whatever. But
Yeah.
then I ended up using more than I thought. I'm adding guy lines to my tent.
Yeah.
Making up spots and stuff because it was a rough.
Yeah.
If you've listened to the podcast, you know.
Yeah, if you haven't heard Mariah's story about horrible wind stories with sheep country, you should listen to his from last year. It's a disaster. I thought he wanted to come back and cry on his inReach messages. It was pretty bad.
It was a rough. It was life changing.
He avoided saying game changer there.
Well, no, yeah.
So yes, I'm glad that you explained about the sil poly versus sil nylon. I hadn't even thought of the tensile strength of sil poly versus nylon. I guess in my short-sightedness and not being on the design end of it, I mean, now that I've done a little more research into it myself, and after you and I talked, I did some more reading into it and found very similar results. It's just that rip strength of sil nylon, because of its elasticity, is a lot higher than sil poly, which is just more rigid.
So out of curiosity, how does Dyneema compare? Obviously, it's a lot lighter, and it's really strong. But
that's a good question.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't give at all, but it's Dyneema. I mean, obviously you can stick a knife and poke through it, but for whatever mad scientist cooked up that laminate process to make Dyneema, that stuff is just, I mean, you've seen all the advertisements. Everyone talks about like whatever it is, 50 times tougher than steel, which that's like, I hate when people say that, because it's like, you could stab a knife at steel and it wouldn't go through, right? But they're talking about like, oh, well, I could grab this fabric and pull it, and I could grab steel and I could pull it, and it's stronger than steel. Like, no, that's not what that's not what we're thinking. Yeah. But no, it's very tough. It doesn't allow as much give. So when you are met with like those windy situations, you run into the same thing where it's putting a lot of stress on the seams, on points of stress. So where that's really important is, as we continue to evolve our design through this, we were thinking ahead, because we kind of always knew like top of the game for the elite is always going to be Dyneema. And that's a lot of the guys I run with. They're like, look, we'll give it a shot, but we want Dyneema as fast as possible, because they're just on that bandwagon so hard. And I get it to an extent, but the sil nylon that we have, when you opt in for Dyneema, which I'm like on both teams right now. I'm gonna play devil's advocate and the guy that really loves it, because I go back and forth. But the weight savings for like a normal like by foot of fabric, cubic foot or whatever, for typical sil poly that's like 30D or whatever that you see on a lot of tents, 20, 30D, whatever. That they say it's like the 50% savings, right, of Dyneema. Well, our shelter, the way it lays out with our sil nylon, it's not it's not 50% because our material is already so lightweight. You're not saving that much by switching to Dyneema.
A lot of your weight is in your material other than the actual tent fabric.
Correct. Yeah. And so for ours, there's not a whole, like the whole thing is already pretty lightweight. So I think, I can't remember off the top of my head, but like maybe like 8 ounces or something, which is, you know, it, and that's when everyone like, oh, Dyneema because it's lightweight. That's the first thing on everyone's head. And like, yeah, it's a very lightweight fabric, but thing never wets out. Like you will never wet that thing out. Whereas, you know, eventually any sil poly, sil nylon, doesn't matter, that's coated like that 2000 micron, whatever coating of rain proofness, which this is another thing a lot of people don't talk about. Anything over 2000, for when you see like 2000 whatever coated, anything over that, you're just adding minuscule but weight nonetheless to your fat. Like to that, it's just like, you know, if you put a layer of something on, you know, like some silicone caulk around your sink, right? Why would you do that 40 times and have like a big layer? It doesn't make it any more waterproof. So you're just adding weight and bulk to your, it's the same concept. So when I see some brands talk about like, it's 40,000 layers micron deep of waterproof, whatever they're calling it. I'm like, yeah, but okay. It doesn't make it waterproof, you know? It's like sewing 2 beaver skins together. Why would you do that? It's already good to go. So anyways, so aside from that little rant, Dyneema shines because it doesn't wet out. There is no like coating. It's waterproof in its nature. What's also curious is that if you look at it underneath a microscope, it's porous. So I did a lot of testing actually because I was curious. I ran some digital thermometers in a sil nylon Peax Solitude 4 and a Dyneema Solitude 4 because my assumption is that it would be more humid in the Dyneema because it didn't breathe, right? This is before I knew that it was porous because I don't just go around, despite how it may sound, I don't go around with a microscope in my pocket. I mean, analyze this fabric. That's not what I do. So it wasn't until after that I run all these tests. I run all night. I put some little buddy heaters in there, crank up the propane, put them on high, watch this. And it actually, I also assumed it would retain more heat. But it's actually less humidity than in the sil nylon because of the coating. Not that it makes a huge difference. It was minuscule. I'm not ready to like publish these numbers because it's groundbreaking, but it was interesting. So like to put this in layman's, if you were to grab a bundle of water, like you let it rain on your tarp or whatever, a tarp of Dyneema, tarp of sil nylon, sil poly, whatever, you fold it up and you got like a little water balloon right there. It will start to drop out of Dyneema, not because it's not, it's the tautness of Dyneema that when it's pitched or like laid out, like the static tautness on a molecular level that makes it waterproof. But it is not like a waterproof coating of sil nylon will just hold it until that coating gives way. Whereas Dyneema is porous on a microscopic level, so it can breathe actually a little bit easier. Not on like, I'm not saying you could make a wind jacket out of Dyneema and run around on the track and not sweat. But it was really curious to me. That's the kind of stuff I do on the weekend. Put 2 teepees up and put some thermometers in there. And I was like, why is this less humid? And then I start to deep dive into Dyneema. All that to say, it's a crazy fabric. It's a porous laminate weave of stuff that is super tough because it's layer over layer. It's like, you know, plywood versus, you know, just a little 1/4 inch sheet of cheap birch. You know, you kick that thing, it's going to break right through, but you kick a 1/4 inch plywood, you know, it kind of bends and snaps back at you. It's kind of that laminate effect that creates the toughness as well as the fabric itself that some mad scientist cooked up. It was originally for sales. I don't know if you guys knew that, but it was originally for sailing competitions that they made this. Yeah, it was in the sail world for a long time, Dyneema Sails, and it's changed hands like 4 times as far as who owns it. That's why it's called Dyneema now. It used to not be called Dyneema. So, yeah. Yep, CF, yeah, Cuban fiber, ultralight Cuban fiber, yeah.
But it's a USA owned and made product, right? Dyneema fabric. So I don't know this for sure, kind of, because I was looking into materials at one point. I got on this thing about tarps and tents, and I can't remember if it was before or after I bought and had my tent experience in the mountains last fall. But at some point, I was just all about, and I was finding sourcing websites and where you can buy fabric and like what would it take to make my own tarp, and I should make my own tent and all this. I don't have time for that, but and I was seeing Dyneema, right, and like Cordura type materials for things, and like any of these brand names, right? Because Dyneema is a brand name, and Cordura is a brand name. They're a USA made? At least that's what my assumption was. I didn't look really close, but they're a USA made and owned and made product, and so you can't just have it made in Vietnam. That's why it's from what I from what I what I've understood, kind of didn't really do the research to know for sure, but that they're USA owned and made. That's part of the reason why you've got the big price tag on it.
Yeah, I think also they own that process like Gore-Tex, right? Like it's I mean, I don't know. I can't say yes or no that they're made here in the US. But what I can say is that you cannot get a laminate whatever law team they got over there, them boys are serious because it's rare that you get these Asian factories to not like kind of creep up on that edge a little bit, be like, we have Dycema and we're ready to drop it for half the price. Whatever law team they've assembled over there, it's like it's man, it's serious. It's some suit stuff going on over there because they must be every time someone gets a WeChat going over there, and they're like, oh, what if we made a competitive Taiwanese? Oh, they appear the next day. Patent right here. We're ready to take you down because there's nobody. Because I went down the same hole as you, man. I was looking. I was like, I'm gonna make my own. I can't afford this dang Dyneema crap, but I want it so bad. And then you like rip stop by the roll. I'm sure you got there.
Yeah.
I was looking at the website. Yep.
Yeah, but then you look at it, and then I have the privilege of like walking into the room, being like, "Is this crazy?" And they're like, "Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy pricing because they're getting it for their stuff and then reselling it, which I don't even know if that's technically legal. I don't know how they're doing that because of all the patent stuff involved. I don't know, but I do know that I'm surprised that it is still patented because I went down a different rabbit hole because I'm looking at these Arctic expeditions where these guys that were sailors selling the Northwest Passage and stuff, they're like, guys, what if we make tents out of this stuff? And they did. And they took their sails and they made tents and they did this cross Arctic little jaunt in the summer, all Dyneema everything in like late 80s. So tell me how this patent still exists. I'm scared that I'm about to hear a knock on my door from the Dyneema guys. I'd be like, you need to shut this podcast down. But yeah, I don't get it because patents eventually they slip. Yeah. So I don't know what they're doing.
The Mossad CAA. Yeah.
So anyways, I don't know exactly what they're doing, but they own it. And the only way to get Dyneema is through Dyneema. There are some other laminates that we actually we pursued a couple of them. There's actually another USA made one that I can't remember the name of, but well, there's that too. That's okay. This one is not one. I can't remember the name because it was weird and a new startup. But
I have a tarp made by somebody that's ultra TNT. Just trying to not pay $500 for a Dyneema tarp. Like, my goodness. And yeah, I was pretty impressed. I think it was like $200, and I've used it like once. It was the same trip, and when I needed a tarp, it wasn't too bad. But it was really wrinkly. Like, now I hadn't, I'd pulled it out, unrolled it in the living room, looked at it, stuck it back in the backpack, stuck it back in its package until I was in the mountains. So I don't know if I need to run it through a washer or something to kind of loosen it up some, but because it kind of was wrinkly like a blue tarp. although it was like 11 ounces and it's 8x9 tarp.
Yeah.
But okay, that's interesting. So I looked it up. Dyneema is owned by a U.S. company and made exclusively in the U.S. So there's a high probability that it's a ultra secret. Like I mean, you look at like Lockheed Martin, right? They managed to keep their secrets somehow. It's not all patents; it's secrets, right? And like they figure out how to make something.
Yeah.
The military's got all these super duper, bulletproof and armor stuff that they put on their tanks and everything, and nobody still knows how it's made except for the guys that made it. And it could have been done 50 years ago, and we still don't know anything about it. I think it's got to be something. The idea that's made in the U.S. means they have the ability to protect it that way.
Yeah. It's got to, like, I agree. I think it's got to be in the process of what, like, the secrets of the process, like making Dr. Pepper, right? No one's ever going to make Dr. Pepper because they don't know the process. And that's the way it should be. Dr. Thunder, get out of here. Texas made, by the way, Dr. Pepper, just so you know. I don't know where it's made now, but it started in Texas.
Yeah, you Texas boys in your little state. Come on.
There's a lot of things going on right now in Texas that I'm not.
You know what's going to happen if we get Greenland? Texas would be the 4th largest state.
Oh, we're not going to like that. Oh, no, but I do think it's the process that's protected because that they've got a hold of it. I mean, every like tent manufacturer outside of maybe Seek Outside is assembling elsewhere because that's where everything else is made. And so like there's mass exports of Dyneema to these Asian countries, to these tent factories. Why is it not replicated? And I think that it's starting. I think that eventually they'll figure it out. I just think that the main thing is that there's not enough market. It's not like when Yeti dropped. Yeti dropped and like a year later, it's like, man, everybody's all over it. Everybody's got a Yeti knockoff, there was like a heyday of Yeti. And then this was before, I guess, super social media, super access to everything. But like if Yeti dropped now, like this year, it would probably be before the end of the year that you could get a knockoff Yeti. And it's an idea and process that was started, I think, wasn't it in like Austin, Texas, and then carried on. But anyways, it's 100% the process, but I do think they're getting close because we've seen some and there's, which isn't, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't Ultra TNT also American made or American owned process?
It seems like it runs about half the price. Once again, like I say, Ripstop, Buy the Roller, other websites like that. But
yeah, so we actually did play around with TNT a little bit, Ultra TNT. It's a very young company, young process, and so they're still figuring out like seam issues. So a tarp would be perfect because there's like, well, what's to go wrong? It's a big sheet of the material. But when it comes to addressing seams and connection points and that stress and that tear, when we talked to them, they even said, they were honest to their credit. They're like, we don't know yet. We got to do some testing, but hit us back, And so I think people that are making this are these cottage makers, that have the time to figure it out, or just said, screw it, I'm going to put together a teepee out of this stuff and see how long it lasts. And, if it lasts a couple backpacking trips, they're like, well, I'll sell a few, and they put it on Etsy or whatever. Not to say that we definitely got our eye on it. Like the minute that believe me, the minute that it's cheaper for us to make and give it to people cheaper, it's going to happen. Like if TNT is on the same, it's like slightly heavier. But again, like I keep saying, it's not the weight savings that we like are hard. Like the Dyneema guys that have Dyneema, it's very quickly that you're like, well, it's not about the weight. Like at first you're like, you're fiending to buy it because of the weight savings. And then you get it and it's like, that's nice and all, but like everything else about it is what I like. And that's the waterproof nature. It never wets out, no sag whatsoever. You pitch it, it's going to be that way forever until you change it, till you take it down. And then also the weird thing about Dyneema is like the see-through nature. It's so weird. Like that, like the porous thing makes more sense once you like the sun comes up. you can sleep a whole nother hour in your Sill TP than you can that Dyneema TP, because it's almost like you don't want to change in there. Like sometimes it feels so see-through that you're like, oh, these people are gonna be looking at me. But that's, I don't know. It just boggles the mind how that material works. Like you get in there and you feel it and it's so light in your hands and you're like, there's no way that this is going to work. And it is super tough. I mean, like everything else, like I said, you can take a sharp stick and shove it through there if you really want to. You can take a knife and shove it through. But like as far as wind resistance, like the tensile strength of it is even greater than the Sill nylon. So your pressure points, as long as your seams are crafted correctly and your guidelines are where they need to be, and you do the work of staking them out properly, it can be just as effective. Obviously, if you don't stake out your single point guy out system and you've only got 2 stakes on the corners and 1 in the middle, that's going to bow in on itself and eventually create seam damage on those main seams, because it's just all of that's funneling into that main seam and just hitting that constantly over the night. So if you do Dalton's approach of making sure you got every single thing perfect, you'll never have an issue in your life. But yeah, so that's the Dyneema thing is a real debate, because the price point is so hard to get over. And that's where, if TNT, if we could figure that out, it'd be better, because that laminate process, I do think is for this day and age, the best material. Now, the price point though is what gets most people. But then you look at it as, do I want to buy this and it last and never wet out? And do I want, like, it's never about, like, obviously the weight savings is awesome, but to me it's durability. It's I can shake off every water droplet. There is no soakage. There's none of that. Like ice and water will slide right off and it's not going to sag. And it's always, for its lifetime, it will be waterproof. I never have to retreat this. That being said, I still got an original release of the 4P and Sill nylon that I rock to this day. Man, it's fine. So I don't know. I'm on the fence with both, because I get to use like the marketing Dyneema every once in a while. I get to use it. And when I do use it, I'm like, it's nice. Like the anti-sag is nice, but then you take into account there's another like pro con of Dyneema, and that son of a gun is hard to put back into the stuff sack. It is like, I mean, dude, you unless you're like a former pothead or something and you can just roll a tight little joint with your TP, it is hard to get that thing back in there. And Mom, you'll be proud, I have not rolled any joints in my life, so it is hard for me to get that Dyneema TP back into the stuff sack. But if you're camping with a buddy and he just gets that Dyneema back in the sack first try, he's puffing on the ganja, or at least used to. So that's my tell. But yeah, that's the other drawback. That Sill nylon, while it does retain a little bit of water / ice, dude, that stuff is like a stretchy Armstrong kind of thing. Like you can just jam it in there almost and make it work. But the Dyneema, it's a meticulous process. So Dalton, obviously you were born a Dyneema guy, because the immaculate origami fold and Mr. Miyagi that thing that sounds like you. So
Well, I
No, he's perfect on the setup when it comes to the put away.
oh, dude, yeah,
the backpack stuff where you're like, I'll screw this and you stuff it in the backpack.
Not quite, not totally there. Let me think. Not this last fall of 25, but 24, I shot a moose, and I was out with a buddy of mine, and we brought the teepee. It was a second half of September hunt. Rained the whole stinking time. I mean, the whole time. Didn't bring cots because I didn't want my bag, which I was running the Stone Glacier Zero on that hunt. And I didn't want the bag rubbing up against the inside of the tent, because I had encountered that before. And I think by that time, yeah, obviously by then, this was only a year and a half ago, that the Solus 15 bag was out. But, I don't have the Peax bag yet. But I got nervous about bringing a cot because, I'm over 6 foot. And I've had down bags rub up against the inside of a teepee before, and it is inevitable that you have condensation. But that is just part of a single wall tent. It's nice because it's light. It's relatively large for its weight, obviously a lot larger than a traditional freestanding type of tent. I can almost stand up in the teepee. I can hang stuff to dry, so on and so forth, all the benefits that we know about. But we slept on the ground. We were in a hurry to get it set up because it was pouring rain when we set up camp. So I didn't even set up the stove. And again, I have the light outdoor stove still. And my buddy had come along with me on that trip. We were actually using his boat, and we killed a moose, and we, through a situation that I won't get into on the podcast, we ran into other individuals. We'll just leave it at they thought we were in their area. We were not. It was very cut and dry. There was a very abrupt and short conversation. Opinions were asserted, and my buddy and I said, you know what? This is not worth hanging around here. This is obviously a somewhat hostile situation. We were a long ways from anywhere civil. And so we decided to just break camp down. And in a situation like that, I ashamedly grabbed a big stuff sack dry bag. I mean, like an 85-liter Sea to Summit Cordura exterior, like ripstop dry bag. And I just ripped down the teepee. It had been raining for 3 days. I think that's about how long we were there. The thing was soaking wet. I ripped it down, stuffed it in there, and didn't take it back out until the sun came back out at my house about a week later. At that point, I hung it out over my fence in the backyard and, dried it out inside and out. But normally, I'm very meticulous about this goes in this bag, this goes in that bag. Like I'm the guy with 4 or 5 different stuff sacks on any given time I leave the tent. One of them has gloves and headwear. If I'm sheep hunting, one of them has socks and drawers and long bottoms, and everything is categorized. And Chiam, it's color coded. It's all color coded. I have green stuff sacks. I have yellow. I have blue. I have red. I have one that's my, I think Barclow calls it like a possibles pouch, which I think that term is applicable, but now everybody uses it, so I almost don't want to use it. It's almost like game changer now, right? Something gets trendy, and then I just want to pull away from it, just because no, I don't want to be like you. But my possibles pouch, if you will, is a little 2-liter stuff sack that has a clear plastic see-through front to it, so I can see all my stuff in there. And that has my headlamps and my fire starter and my knife sharpener and my bug nets and my tenacious tape patches and a seam grip and all kinds of fix-it things and a sewing kit. But that's the kind of organization that I'm normally like. And I like the tube that the Sil Nylon TP comes in, because I can actually roll up the TP with the center pole in there, put it in there, and then take the excess fabric that's on the end of the pole, mash that down a little bit, and then take the floor in its stuff sack and put it in there on top of it, and then wedge in my little separate stuff sack, little containment of stakes alongside of it. So everything is self-contained, like a big, heavy lawn dart. I like that. Everything has its own place. It doesn't sound like I'd be able to do that with a Dyneema tent at all.
Well, you can. You fall. I was hoping you'd be. I was hoping you'd be in my camp, which is we keep pressing. We're like, why this tube? We want bag. We want bag to just like stuff stack. Like we want to be able to just stuff stuff in there. I'm not folding crap. This isn't kindergarten little airplane. I want to get out of, if I'm leaving, I want to leave now. Like I don't have, my headlamp will go in my pocket and I will lock it. It'll go in my pocket, and everything else can just go in the lid of my pack. And then my cook stuff gets thrown into the main section, and then sleeping bag, so on, so on. Most people are always on Bryce. They're like, why the tube? Like, we don't want to roll. We just want to stuff. And he's like, well, then like finally he was just like, we're just gonna do a like the stuff sacks, and that's you can do whatever you want. He's like, for me, I like he said almost exactly what you said. The way it sits in a pack, and you can and I'm like, dude. I'm also the guy that if it's slightly inconvenienced, like in the weather or like my timing, the whole thing just goes in I'm just like, screw it. Break down the pole, put the little tent stakes bag and the tent pole bag, and just like wad it up and put it in the lid, and then throw everything into the bottom of my pack. That's me. If I'm inconvenienced at all and there's no time, like it's just on to the next thing. You also got to keep in mind though that I'm not the hunter usually. I am keeping up with the hunter. So like I wake up, someone's already packed up. I'm like, oh shoot, I guess we're leaving. And just like throwing stuff in my pack and put it on and like jogging down the trail to keep up with them, like Bilbo. I'm going on an adventure. Just like running down the trail half cocked. Like, yeah. That's me 90% of the time because, sometimes people don't communicate. It's not like, hey, buddy, what do you think about leaving in about 20 minutes? It's like I hear like the rustling of some fabric and then a zipper. And I like look out of my tent and their tent's gone. And I'm like, oh, crap. And then it's just like panic mode, So I'm in a hurry a lot more than most people. But yeah, I stick stuff in the bottom of the bag easy. But unfortunately, you seem to fall in the organized camp. Everyone else has been asking for just a big bag that they can just put whatever in. But you, man, you're the perfect. I've been trying to think of someone to do this video. You're the perfect test case. We need to get you some of our kit sacks and like little dry bags and stuff, and like have you do an organization video. Because I'm not the guy to do it. I thought about it and I was like, I can't cast myself as I'd be lying. I'm not organized. I have zero I don't color code anything. I don't even have matching socks half the time. So
you would be the guy that's like, and here is my underwear and socks bag where I also put my spotting scope.
Exactly. Hey, that's extra padding. That's exactly what I do.
I knew you were going to say that.
If I have, which I hardly ever do, which again, different story in Alaska, but here, I rarely have extra clothes. And if I do, I use like the underwear to put a lens in to like kind of protect them. And then I throw the lens in the bag. So it's like, and then the bad thing is I always forget. So I'll like yank the underwear out of the bag and then like $1,000 worth of lens goes flying against the tent wall. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I got a lens in there. So
yeah. But luckily, the lens bounces off the tent wall and lands on Mark Livesey's giant air pad, and so it's fine.
Yeah, that's sounding more familiar to how I usually. So I'll start out with. Yeah. I'll spend 6 months packing and repacking my backpack. Right, buying gear. I've got the list on my computer of weights. All right, I'm the guy looking at that half pound in the Dyneema tent. And just because, a half pound is a lot of weight and it adds up. But when I finally get out, like I'll have it, I don't color code. When I find and I'll spend the 6 months doing that packing and repacking, right? And then I've got my backpack set. And then I get out there and it just gets to be the same kind of thing. Like even if I'm by myself, I'll just start shoving stuff in the bag. Like I get up in the morning, like, all right, I got to get moving. And I just start shoving crap in the bag. I can't remember what stuff's in what stuff sack. Like
I can't stand that.
It's like, I've got a green one and a blue one and an orange one, and I don't remember what's in what. Oh. And they're supposed to be organized, but
I'm with you. All I need to know where's it is my gun or camera to shoot. That's it. If everything else is just somewhere, it's good.
Most of my my tech stuff, my knives, like that, the stuff that you need, right? Mm-hmm. My knife, I have like my lid of my pack is very organized. I always keep my lid very organized. My bino harness, my phone, my digiscope, like that stuff I'm fairly organized with. I did carry what's the brand? I bought a camera right before my sheep hunt last year.
Oh,
like 2 days before
the 360.
Yeah, I bought that new at the time it was the Insta 360 X5, right? And I was like, I'm gonna go buy a better camera because the GoPro I'm kind of tired of. It doesn't. I honestly hate the GoPro now, but I use it from time to time for things. And my editing and videography skills are If I spent more time, they'd be better. But anyhow, and but I'm trying to do something. So I was like, I'm gonna grab this thing and I'm just gonna take it and walk with it and do something with it. And so I tried to pay attention to that thing, but then I was sticking it in like my pocket on my pants and my I had the selfie stick it comes with that has a tripod on the bottom. That's all I had for it. And so I was just walking with it, and then I was like standing it up and walking back and talking to the camera and walking past it and doing all that kind of stuff, right? And I reached down because I had it just shoved in the cargo pocket on my Stone de Havillands. And I reached down to grab it, and it's gone. But somehow the pole had come unscrewed from the camera, and the camera was still in my pocket.
Yeah, that's. Oof.
But I mean, after that, I was really, really careful with that camera. But I went and dropped like $600, on this camera right before I go. Like, I got to do something with this hunt, and then the whole hunt kind of turned into a hike, a long hike in, a few miserable nights, and a long hike out because I didn't make a good tent choice.
Yeah. So I do have one question about the Sil Nylon teepees. So I have had mine now for what's going to be going on 3 years at this point. And I didn't spend any time in it in 2025. It was just, I didn't have a lot of time for fall hunts last year. Matter of fact, very, very little. I went on one trip in October for brown bears with my father-in-law, Mo's dad, and a friend of ours. And on that hunt, we stayed in a big, I think it's an 8x10 Arctic oven, which for anybody that's in Alaska, you know what an Arctic oven is. It is said in the same sentence with Alaska known and tested tents.
Yeah.
They're by no means light. You have to carry it over your shoulder in a giant sack.
When you're carrying it, it's the only thing you're carrying.
Yeah, it's big, but it's insulated. It's very warm. It's not as waterproof as you would think to an extent, but it does a good job of wicking moisture outward. And I think a better job seam sealing in the future would help prevent some of the water leakages that we had. But anyway, so I didn't really have any cause to use the TP in 25. I do have a lot more things planned with kind of the schedule relaxing a bit personally in 26. And so I do have plans to use the TP. But one thing that I did notice in 24 on that moose hunt was, and I hadn't really thought about it until you mentioned it just now, is that the wetting out factor of the Sil Nylon, right? So I have re-seam sealed, or I think when I bought the tent, I just seam sealed it because that's just habit for me. I think I went down, I think it was Beaver Sports, and every tent I've ever had, the first thing I do is I set it up in the front yard on a nice sunny day, stake it out, familiarize myself with it, figure out how many stakes I need, go to Beaver Sports and buy that many groundhog steaks if I don't have enough, and then I go out and seam seal the thing and let it dry and get baked in the sun. And with the TP, it's due for a resealing of the seams at this point. But is there a way, if I think it's starting to saturate through, is there a washable type way to reapply some of that waterproofing to that Sil Nylon? Do I send it back to the Peax office, and you guys have a proprietary way of doing that? Is there a spray-on application like what's Nikwax? That's the brand. They have like a down washing, a rain gear washing solution, all kinds of stuff, and they have spray-on options. Like for instance, I spray all of my the little scope coat materials.
Scope slicker.
Yeah. What's the
neoprene?
name? Yeah, neoprene. All of my neoprene scope covers that I have on all my scopes, because I very rarely use like flip up scope caps. I just rarely do for some reason. Had too many of them break, I guess. But I always spray those things down with that Nikwax waterproofing material, and it works pretty well. Usually I have to respray it once a year, but it works pretty well at repelling water. So is that something that I could use on the Sil Nylon TP to just kind of make sure that it doesn't have that issue in the field? Or what's your guys' recommended process for that?
First, isn't neoprene like waterproof in its nature?
No.
Yeah, I mean,
it's highly water resistant, but it does soak through like a sponge after a while.
I think it depends on the maybe the material, because I think so if you're using like neoprene waders though are
Sure,
right,
yeah,
but I don't know that the scope slickers are made of the same thing, because neoprene gloves are the same way.
Yeah,
so I don't know if they just don't treat the seams super well, like because on your scope slickers and stuff you don't have treated seams, it's just a sewed together seam. That's probably what it is.
Probably never seen neoprene waders that stretch like those scope covers do, so I'm sure there's some sewing and
yeah I mean they stretch a lot, but they have like taped seams too, right?
that's got to be the failure point. So you're probably just coating because like neoprene.
Yeah, neoprene is pretty inherently waterproof.
Yeah.
Anyways, I was just making sure I wasn't crazy on that, because that would explain a lot of the reason that my neoprene waders leaked. But I think it's the same thing, seams. Because it's hard to puncture, or like I don't think you can make it because it's rubber basically. Anyways, so I think the best way to do it is the same way you do your rain gear. I don't know how you guys do it, but that Nick Wax wash, I just glug a whole bunch of those freaking the whole like the quart or whatever into the washer. And I overdo it with my rain gear too, because I'm like, I don't think I can overdo waterproofness. So whatever, I don't even read the instructions. I just pour a bunch of it in there.
There's
a 2-step process, Chiam. You're messing it up.
Is that bothering you, Dalton?
Yeah, I'm twitching over here.
So I went and bought the stuff and took it home to my wife and said, "Here, wash my rain gear with this," right? and yeah, I don't know. She completely messed up the process, whatever it was, and I've got too much of one now and not enough of the other.
Because it's tech wash first, right? And then you apply
Yeah, the DWR.
I think she may have done DWR and then tech wash and then DWR again.
But yeah, so like tech wash and then reapplying that waterproof treatment. I think I don't know off the top of my head. I'm not customer service or like the tech guy, but in my experience, the wash in has always done better. And that's kind of what we tell people. That's the gold standard, is to try to wash it in, same as you would rain gear. And then shy of that, spray applicators. I've never had much success. I don't know why. But the spray on stuff has just never worked the same as wash in stuff for me. So yeah, that's what we tell people, is that, is it purple or blue or whatever color that is, tech wash, and then waterproof wash, and then yeah. No, that, and I want to say we did this just for a video and tested it out, and like, yeah, that's what, because we did a couple different things, which now that this is like more full time for me, probably remake that video, because I don't think we ever posted it. I think the problem was we were just kind of too goofy on it. It's like, how are you serious standing next to a washing machine talking through? Like it was like me, and at the time I think I was in an apartment, and it's just like me and a dude in a tiny apartment. It was just weird. So never launched that, but that is something we should probably make a video for. But that worked out really well. I remember going out and like putting the water hose on it, and like, man, this is beating up, like a very obvious difference. The other reason we didn't launch the video is because I didn't take it before. I didn't beat it up before. So it's like, what's the basis of you saying this is more waterproof? And I'm like, I guess there is no basis. You're just gonna have to trust me. But yeah, so that worked really well. And that Sil nylon, because of the stretch, I think it absorbs it better, to be honest, like absorbs the treatment better than poly does.
So you recommend the rain gear wash cycle, where it's the tech wash first and then the DWR application afterwards.
So if it's dirty, I mean, everyone's going to be different. Dalton's going to be way different than, I want mine dirty. I want to keep mine looking dirty. I want mine to look like I've lived in it.
I want mine to repel water. I don't care what it looks like.
But I mean, come on. That's like saying I don't care what I look like. I'm going to shave my beard. Now that's not going to happen. We know that's not going to happen. You look too cool with your beard to get rid of it. So that's like, to me, I get attached to the scars, right? The little dirt, like, oh yeah, I remember the time I was in the high desert. And so for me, also, it's another step, and I'm not meticulous, and I don't care. So whatever, if it's lax or whatever, I may run a cycle with it just to get it clean, and mainly because they say, I don't think that they're right, but they say that process helps strip and get it ready. It's almost like the sanding, right? Like sanding and applying stain.
I 100% buy it, Chiam. Yeah, well, you're just wrong for not believing it then.
Just because the instructions say it, you don't have to listen to that, Dalton. You don't have to stop at the stop signs. It's imaginary rules, man.
There are so many false.
No, I would recommend doing the two-step process. I would 100% follow the instructions. Only if you're young and dumb like me and want to mess around and find out, should you not follow the instructions, because it truly is like sanding down your wood before staining it. That's basically what it is. So yeah.
Yeah, well, and for me, it strips the silt out of it, any sand grains that are in there. And then I guess another part of this is some wash cycles different than others. Are we talking about like agitator in the middle, like the old spin style, or the tumbler where you feed it from the front type of washing machine?
The general consensus around all this stuff is the same thing we say with downwear, is that the modern loaders are way better than the old ones. So the agitator, like any kind of older top load type stuff that has the agitator. Same with the like older style dryers. Like we kind of say like if it's a top load kind of deal and not the modern open, it's just going to be a bit too rough for the down stuff. Like me at the time, I didn't have a good washer dryer, and I honestly think I've messed up some sleeping bags by washing them and drying them through like older washer dryers. They just didn't bounce back as much. And then I redid that process with the modern one, because now that I live off grid, I have to have this like really fancy. I had to save up my money forever. I hate being an adult and like buying things like a washer dryer. Like that was the dumbest thing ever. But I had to buy that combo one that they make now, that plugs up right into 120. So it's like super low draw, super easy on materials. That has been like the best. I have people ask me to wash their sleeping bags, and I'm like, well, if we got a good solar day, I'll take you up on that. Otherwise, sorry, you're gonna have to pay for generator gas because we are running off grid here. So yeah, I think the more modern, like if you got a buddy or something, like at the time, I didn't realize it, and I was like legit, there was a difference at the time I was running the Stone before we dropped our bag. There was a big difference when I washed, because I thought it would rebound. Like that was everyone online. It's gonna rebound. It's gonna come back to normal. I felt like I beat a wet dog, and it's just more wet and more beat now. Like it just looked bad. And then I ran it through a modern washer dryer because someone told me that, and I did, and it did rebound better. So I think there is some stuff, as well as putting in like lint balls and stuff. Always make sure to do that. That's part of the instructions I would say to follow, because it's fluffing it and put it back in place as it should be. If you just dry it, it's going to clump up and end up anywhere. But yeah, same thing for both. Modern front load style is going to be better. The agitator is always just going to, I mean, imagine all those. I would hate to have to take off all my guy lines, but I feel like I would if I had the agitator in the middle, because I just know that's just begging me to flip a breaker and like clog up the agitator and just and then everything catches on fire. And yeah, that just feel like that would happen with all those strains. I can't hardly wash a comforter without it getting twisted up and starting to rock the entire washroom. So I can't imagine a tent with a rope everywhere is going to be any kind of fun. So yeah, the more modern, the better, which is rare that I'll ever say that, but the more modern the machine, probably the better for your wash cycle. So if you were like me a couple of years ago, living with roommates with a crappy college style agitator, like old probably older than me, washer, dryer, don't do it. Just ask somebody to come to their house and wash it there. Go to your parents' house like you do anyways to wash your laundry. You do. Just wash your sleeping bag there too.
And so I guess that the final question on that note of washing and re-waterproofing the sill nylon tent is: do you have you had any issues with leaving all the guy lines on there? I mean, should I just leave them on there and roll the dice?
If you have a modern one without an agitator, I had no issues.
Just don't make sure they don't get caught in the door.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think anything without the agitator, you'll be fine. I didn't have an issue with it. It was perfectly fine. So
I lied. One more question about the nylon TP. So I have several character marks on my nylon TP, aka tenacious tape patches, where there is evidence of my rudimentary skills with a titanium wood stove and not properly using the spark arrestor. I sent a few embers through the side of my teepee while I was burning in the stove in my front yard before that deer hunt even happened. I came back outside. I got inside the teepee. I was taking the chimney out of the tent, and I looked through and I went, "Hey, there's a little bead of sunlight." And there's a little bit of sunlight coming through there. That's not good. And there was like 3 of them on one side and one on the other side. So, I've tried the tenacious tape patches. They seem to be sticking okay, but some of the corners peel up over time. Is that kind of the preferred method of patching that, or do you have something else that you recommend for little pinholes for things like that?
that's honestly the best way. Get the closest matching color if possible, or clear, and put it on there. And it's gonna last, a season, and you may have to reapplicate. But I will also say this for TP. This is specific to TP style structures because of the formation, the triangle. It just creates that tension. Basically, it's hard for water to get in there. Like full downpour, I've got 2 or 3 ember holes in mine, and I kind of just gave up. I was like, it's not worth it. Like I'm seeing nothing come through. Like seam issues are way more important than pinholes in my opinion. Now you can do whatever you want, patch it whatever you want. Unless you have a rain where water is coming in, I usually don't mess with it, because even at that point it's like a droplet. And then if I get a droplet, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go home and patch this. Otherwise, because of the way it just falls off, if it's at the top area, which is usually where those ember holes happen, it's so taut that it's just running right over the hole before ever coming into it. So that's been my experience. I usually don't patch them. I used to, and then I kind of stopped. If they're lower, I'll patch them. But if I do patch them, sometimes when I'm in a pinch, I've got some Tyvek tape on my trekking poles that I'll use. That stuff holds pretty good too. It just looks weird, like you got this white and blue like construction tape on your TP. But yeah, the clear tenacious tape is honestly the best way to go.
Yeah. And then what about, let's just say, in extreme winds, right? If you have a couple of those holes, like mine are for the most part at the halfway point or a little bit lower. If I'm in a pretty windy situation, have you had any issues or heard of any issues where those holes can create a soft spot? I'll give you an example. So when I was on that brown bear hunt in October, I brought my giant, I think it's a 9x11 Hilleberg sill nylon tarp. And that thing has a lot of stretch to it. Like I have staked that thing out poorly, left it overnight, and come back in the morning, and the 2 front corners are up at about 6.5 feet high. The back 2 are about 2 feet off the ground over a log. It's all staked out and tight, but it rained all night, and the wind stopped at about 1 a.m. and it kept pouring. And I come out to like a kiddie pool of water in that sill nylon tarp. It is sagged to the ground, and I'll get out underneath of it, push it out, splish splash everything out after I fill up my Nalgene's, obviously. And the sill nylon seems to very quickly rebound. And on that October bear hunt, at some point, a couple of holes got rubbed into that tarp somewhere. I think I had a rock that was laying on it at one point, and I folded it up overnight, and then it blew, I think, 40, 50 miles an hour that night, and it was doing the, and it just wore a couple of holes in it. And I was worried that in the wind, those would start to expand. And so I even got out tenacious tape and thought about it, and then I forgot. And I put it back up, and then the wind kicked up again, and I forgot about it all day. And then that night I was packing it up, and I realized, oh, bummer, did I just let these holes get to this big? And I went and looked at them, and they were the exact same size. So is that just a characteristic of sil nylon not wanting to spread like that? Or should you be really meticulous about little pinholes in your sil nylon tent because of wind being able to expand those holes and just further that tear?
So I think both ways. I think like I was saying, at the top, like little bitty pinholes, like literally like someone jabbing a needle through, I'm not as worried about it. The lower it goes, the more concerned I get. Also, if it were anywhere near a seam, I would 100% patch it as soon as I could. Anything near thread, like material itself, especially like, and I would go so far as to say too that if it were like from the rock pushing through, eroding it, that's a different hole. By Chiam's definition here, we're making a graph. This pie chart, this hole is different because it's not basically cauterizing the wound almost. Like it's really hard to expand a fray. Like that's why we burn the end of rope, right? To keep it from fraying further. So you're essentially doing the same thing with that fabric by burning a hole through it. It's not going to spread. It's going to be very difficult for you to spread that. But a seam with thread, the hole may not grow, but if it gets to the thread, pops a thread and continues that strain on that thread, the thread might come off on that seam. So I would patch anything close to a seam as soon as possible, with priority. Anything near any kind of stitching, I would fix quickly, because if it does happen to spread enough to get to that seam, I think that it'll put too much pressure, because the whole system relies on those triangular seams all working in conjunction and taking stress equally. The minute you weaken one, it's like taking a pillar out from underneath your house. I think that it's important to maintain those seams. So if it were near a seam, I'd patch it ASAP. Even lower, just to be safe, I would. But like I said, past the guidelines and up, I generally don't worry about it. Lower, I do, just because, especially on a sil nylon, if you do get some sag during the night, it could gather and drop through, which that's usually where your head or legs are, and that's no good. And you just can't keep that tension on it at the bottom in the same way you can at the top, because it's just naturally a triangle. So the other thing I will say, big plus for Dyneema, is that you're not drinking hazardous nuclear waste when you collect water off your Dyneema TP. We've all done it. I've done it. That's probably why I've got 11 toes now, is because of that water off of a coated, that whatever stormproof coating, whatever they concocted in the Asian factory. Who knows, man? I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. So Dyneema, safer alternative for drinking water up on a mountain when you can't come down. I'd never thought of that plus until you said that. And I was thinking, like, you know what? The last time I tasted water off a Dyneema tarp versus a sil tarp, it tastes a little bit more cancer free. Just like, that, take that with a grain of salt. But
So RFK would approve.
yeah, I would not drink the tarp water off of a freshly treated tarp. I'll say that.
Well, I suppose we should wrap this up and just kind of let you go into, do you have anything new to tease? I know we've gone through a lot of the existing product, spent a lot of time on the TP tent, especially the original, the 4-man. But you hinted at the new puffy gear. Obviously, people can see you on the YouTube version of this. You're wearing the puffy jacket or an iteration of it. So is there anything that you want to kind of let the listeners know is maybe in the works, or that they could expect to see coming at some point in the future for Peax?
Yeah. So the puffy's the main thing we're working on right now. There's a few things that I'm actually, so part of my role here is actually a little bit of R&D. So and mainly in the tech division, because if you've seen some other stuff I've been a part of or on podcasts, I nerd out on tech stuff. So there's some interesting stuff in tech, particularly around water purification that I'm heading up, and I'm very excited about the direction that's going. There's nothing out there like it. I'll just say that. And because I'm leading this up in R&D, I can definitely tease that and confidently say there is nothing like it, and it's tech driven. And it'll be in conjunction with some other things. But it's a systemic approach like we were talking about. So our water system will be something to look forward to. That won't be for a while, but you might start seeing some weird stuff showing up, and I might be using it in some films. If you want to pinch and zoom and pause on YouTube and really get into it and message me, feel free. I might drop a little hints, but yeah, that's going to be super cool. But as to what we're working on right now, I'm somewhat involved from the capacity of like filming and giving like fit and obviously taking this out into the field. Few key things like we were talking about earlier. This is Torre, which breathes really well, and it's got the protective extra waterproof stuff where we need it the most. Top of the hood, lower back, elbows, same kind of stuff on. I think I've got some puffy puffy pants laying right here. Another thing I like about these pants is this little same style recessed pocket right there on your thigh as the sleeping bag. The jacket has the same thing too. You can see like kind of put your hand in just like the sleeping bag, pull it out, and it goes back. So I like that. And these pockets go all the way up for gloves or just keeping your core warm, kind of like that. So the pockets go way up here. You can see my hand. But this is, I want to say, Gen 4 out of what I estimate to probably take 6 to be final. The main thing we're working on right now, there's 2 things. One of them's less of a big deal, but we're going to have a tall version for tall guys. So it's mainly fit right now we're worried about, which I'm normally a medium jacket, and our medium prototype that came in was pretty tight around like the shoulder area, which I'm a really buff guy. So that's always going to be an issue for me, just I'm not. So the fact that it fit tight on me means it needs to be a little bit bigger. And it was a little tight around the waist. Again, nothing to do with me. My waist is slim. So, anyways, there's just a few fit issues that we're sending out to some of our guys to try on. We got some weird bodies, some normal bodies, all kinds of bodies to try these on, give us some feedback. But the main thing, you guys and your listeners can help out and weigh in here, because there is a huge heated debate. We're almost at the point of getting boxing gloves out to solve this debate. And it's mainly me and Bryce right now that's going at it. So pit zips or no on a puffy. So the first thing we found is we don't like actual pit zips, because when you have to go here and unzip, it's just clunky and awkward. So we've got it to where it's not a full, like all the way up. It's just right there. So you can kind of see to air it out. But my thought is, why do I regulate with a puffy, right? I want to be Chris Kyle. I'm not moving. I'm not moving from behind there. I'm a deadly killer. I will not move until my target is dead. That's my mindset. And I also don't put on the puffy till I'm cold. And then I'm not really moving around. I don't need to vent. So my thought is I want more down in place of the weight that these zippers take. Because, it's probably 3.5 ounces to have 2 pit zips right there. And there seems to be 2 camps forming that are very, very firm in what they believe. So I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say and what your listeners might have to say about pit zips, their weight, the drawback of their weight, but the benefits that they have for just a livable puffy. So what do you guys think?
So I was kind of split, and then you brought up the weight. And honestly, obviously the weight's not I know it shouldn't be a big thing, but For me, it kind of is. But at the same time, I can't remember the last time I used pit zips on a puffy.
Yeah.
Is it because you just don't use the feature, or that it was never in a jacket that you like a puffy jacket that you had? It just wasn't there. It didn't exist for you to use it, or did you have it?
No, I've had them with it, and maybe I tried using it, but it's like you always just like if I'm too hot when I'm wearing a puffy, the puffy comes off.
Mm-hmm.
I have other layers for the purpose of the reason I'd be wearing that puffy at that point.
Right. Yep.
Now it'd be different it would be different if the puffy was a two-part, like if it was filling only that insulation role. Now if it was like that one may be, it might be able to fit 2 points where it does 2 things for me, right? Where it's maybe a little bit of a wind stopper or something like that.
Very good job of wind stopping. So
In that case, I might then be more interested in the pit zips.
Right. So, yeah, I've always looked at pit zips as one dimensional. I like them on my wind layer. I don't even like pit zips on a rain jacket because 90+% of the time I've got a backpack on, and it is not beneficial to have a zipper that goes all the way down here when I've got a pack strap that's going right down the center of that. That is a huge pain in the butt for me. Now, I will say that from a design perspective, I'll throw out First Light. They have their Omen Storm Shelter rain gear jacket, and they have the Unk Foundry jacket, I believe it's called. It's kind of a puffy / 2-layer water resistant breathable shell. And they both share a design in that they have tricep vents, and the rain jacket has chest vents kind of above your pecs right here. So it's always accessible even with wearing a pack strap. Even so, I don't know that maybe in the couple of years that I've run that Omen jacket, maybe single digit number of times have I ever actually opened the vents. When I want to open up a rain jacket because I'm sweating, I wait until I'm like, glasses fogging up when I stop walking hot. And at that point, I'm going to reach down behind my bino harness and undo the zipper all the way down and pull the thing back to where it's just wide open. That's going to dump that heat quickly. I've never really liked having zippers to ventilate of any kind. To me, number one, it's a failure point in any kind of waterproof, breathable jacket. The more zippers there are, the higher chance that there is that at some point you could get some sand or grit in one of those zippers and it won't close. So maybe I open it and I cool off, and then I'm standing there, messing around with my zipper for the next 10 minutes trying to get it to go, and rinsing water on it to try to clean it out. Been there with tents before. So for me, I like ventilation on layers that are meant to be breathable by nature, not a severely insulating jacket needs to be just that to me. A severely weather protective jacket needs to be just that for me. I don't love the idea of zippers unnecessarily in garments like that. And from my perspective, Mo said if I can cut 3 ounces, I will out of it by getting rid of the zippers. I look at that as if I can add 3 ounces of down and get rid of 3 ounces of zipper,
Yeah.
and make that jacket maybe, from whatever ounces it is in downfill right now, and maybe it's comfort rating with a merino base layer of 150 weight underneath the down jacket. Maybe the comfort level is 40 degrees now, but it could be 30 if we added 3-4 ounces of down. I'm going to vote for that over pit zips any day of the week. Absolutely. So yeah, I mean the soft shells, Sitka made a jacket for a very short amount of time, and I was very disappointed that they quit making it. I bought one. It was called the Mountain Evo jacket, and it has like a Gore Infinium shell, really, really thin, but super, super wind resistant. I mean, almost completely impenetrable from what I've used it in. And I used it sheep hunting, used it caribou hunting. I love the thing, but it has pit zips, and the back of it, the entire back panel was a very stretchy, breathable material. And that was meant so that when you had a pack on, you didn't sweat on your back a lot, right? So that, but that, to my point, was it was designed to be breathable and be able to move moisture a lot. Breathable rain gear, to me, people talk about a breathability rating versus a waterproof rating. What you don't realize is that breathable waterproof laminate materials are only breathable if it's dry on the outside, for the most part. If the outside has water on it, the vapor really can't get out of it. So people say, well, I'm just as hot in my breathable rain gear as I'm in my rubber rain gear. Well, yes, that is matter of factly, for the most part, true. To an extent, it is not breathable when it's raining on the outside. It has to have it has to have somewhere to put that humidity. And if it's 100% inside the jacket and it's 100% outside because it's raining, well, now where does it go? Your body heat is just going to push it and collect it on the inside, which is where you get the oil and sweat buildup, which is why you have to do your tech wash before you put the DWR on, because the tech wash scrubs the oils out of the inside membranes. But just a little callback there for you.
Yeah, I mean, if you follow instructions, then that's what you do. If you do what you're told, yeah.
Yeah, I've always been of the opinion that if I'm going to bring a puffy jacket, I want it to solve my problem now.
Yeah, it needs to be a furnace when you put it on.
Exactly.
I think I would use them if they were there, but I wouldn't miss them if they weren't.
Yeah,
I agree, and that's the camp I fell in, is exactly what you said, Dalton. I was like, you can't have too much down. I mean, if I can X those zippers. In fact, step further here, how often would you use this to store something?
I would use that all the time.
never.
I would use that all the time.
Really?
Oh yeah, dude, I love these pockets, man. I always put stuff in them. I find stuff in my chest pockets on jackets that I haven't worn in forever. I put it on, I'm like, oh, what's in here?
Come on.
Find money, receipts,
Bryce, just skip 30 seconds to where I start talking here.
It is literally always 50-50, either adamant, like chest pockets, or it's either there or I'm not buying it. And then they're like, I've never used a chest. I can't, I'm in that camp. I've never used that.
Where am I supposed to put this, man?
In your thigh pocket of your pants.
So now that we got the thigh pocket, because most puffy pants don't really have pockets, so my thought was like, yeah, I'm not going to put my phone in my, it just feels weird. It's all saggy. Like,
if I'm not wearing my bino harness, my phone goes here when I'm hunting. Like, it's the most secure place where I know where it's at. That, to me, like, I can feel that weight. I know it's there, right?
Yeah, but okay.
Because whether we like it or not, we are more reliant on this in the field than we are anywhere else.
Chiam just hit on a really good point. There is zero structural integrity to especially a down puffy jacket. Zero.
Yeah.
So you put however much this thing weighs, Mr. Ounce Counter, and you put that thing in there. I mean, I'm wearing a Carhartt shirt, and now it looks like, I have muscle deformity on my left shoulder, right? That there is zero support here. There is zero support in a down jacket with a light denier face.
It does have to be big enough, because like I can't fit it in this one.
When I'm hunting, dude, come on.
Oh, perfect. Yep.
I feel like if I stand up quickly, this will swing and bloody my nose because it's got zero. Look at that.
Completely unnecessary.
Yeah, I mean, if someone's sniping me and this saves my life, maybe, but I don't know.
I just thought of something.
What's that?
Cold temperatures with electronics.
Well, the old iPhones, you had to
putting your phone or a battery or an inReach or something, if you were to have something electronic nowadays, which seems harder to get. It seems like more electronics are, a lot more lithium. There's a lot less cold issues with battery things now, but I could see, if you were doing some winter camping type stuff, having a chest pocket to put your cell phone in wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But again, to me, that puffy layer is not on all the time.
No, but when it is,
Yeah, but when
See,
it is,
and
see,
it is, you're less likely to be wearing your bino harness, right?
I use my pants pockets for my phone and my inReach.
To me,
I do not
gotta have the
use.
chest pocket, man. I could live. I could live with or without the side pockets. I'd use them if they were there. I wouldn't miss them if they weren't on a puffy. I think rain gear should have. I just got to throw that out there. Rain gear's got to have pit zips, man, or vent zips.
Yeah.
Anyway, not to harp on that one.
Yeah. I just use them so rarely because then if I forget to close them and it starts pouring again and I'm on a stalk and I forget my pit zips being open, then I'm soaked.
But then you don't care because you're on a stalk.
Yeah.
Unless it blows.
But my clients care when they do it.
Anyway,
I'm constantly reminding them, hey, zip your pits.
Yeah. So, chest pocket, I don't know. I mean, it's not that much weight for y'all weirdos that like that. I mean, yeah, I'm surprised. I'm surprised Mo isn't running like an iPod Nano to do his Onyx since he's so worried about.
I do crazy on weight on certain things so that I can carry a little heavier on the things I want to carry.
I like that. I like that.
I carried 2 40,000 mAh packs on my sheep hunt and a 10,000. Now it's all the night core. Like I bought the lightest weight ones I could find, right? So they're the night core ones. So they're like 10 ounces a piece, which is super light for that kind of a pack. But my plan was to be gone for 16 days, man. Like, you ain't watching movies if you don't have some batteries.
10,000 milliamp, or because you said 40.
I had a 10,000 and 2 20s. That's what I had. So I had 50,000 total.
Okay, I was thinking you had 40,000, and I'm like, that's like 3 clay bricks just sitting in your pack. Okay, I was about to be like, dude, you were watching like Lord of the Ring marathons out there. Like, I don't know what you're doing with your battery power. Geez, 40. I was like, man, I could.
Not a Lord of the Rings guy, man.
You could power a third world city with.
I read The Hobbit and I enjoyed it, but it didn't really do anything for me, if you know what I mean. Like, it was a good story.
You're not a fantasy fiction guy. You want Lonesome Dove, probably.
Lonesome Dove. I feel like I should know that.
A Western. You want a Western.
I haven't.
Oh my goodness.
Well, his argument's now null and void because if you don't like The Hobbit and you don't know what Lonesome Dove is, yeah.
Big Jack Carr fan.
Yeah.
Big Jack Carr
He's
fan.
A huge Jack Carr nerd.
So realism.
Yeah.
He convinced me to carry a paperback copy of the original Jack Carr book, Sheep Hunting, 2 years ago. And I read it, and it was beautiful. But I will never do that again. Never.
You just watch the Terminal List. That'd be same.
Oh my goodness. Oh, did you say watching the movie would be the same as reading the book?
I mean, it's a show. I haven't read any Jack Carr books, so I've only seen the Terminal List, and I thought it was good.
So the show is awesome. The book is the next level, and it's a different enough story that it makes it worth it. Like the gear nerd out in his books is awesome.
This is the content that folks came to this podcast to listen to, folks.
I mean, he names the rifle, the scope, and the bullet that was used.
Mm-hmm.
When right? Like, it is specific.
Yeah.
Down, and
yeah.
And the kind of knife, and
also cited what wood Legolas's bow was carved out of. So I
I don't even know what you're talking about.
I know my wife loves the Lord of the Rings. She's seen it at least 2 times. Maybe 3.
Oh boy!
And then my 8-year-old 8-year-old likes it too now. So there's that. I think she's read the books twice too, actually.
Yikes!
Yeah, and the Silmarillion or whatever, and
oh gosh, that's like the Bible. It's like another Bible. Just the genealogy part is just that almost like it is. For a made up world, Tolkien was crazy, man. Okay, so
chest pocket or not doesn't matter to me, I guess. But pit zips, I could really live without them in a puffy.
So let me run you through our thought process because it is important as to like why we're crafting this. So we look at stuff now; it's either really really heavy and warm, or it's meant to be uber lightweight. Which I've run the Grumman, the Stone Glacier Grumman for 3 seasons now. It's like It is a hollow shell of what it once was, but it is clinging to life right now with a bunch of tenacious tape and what have you.
I have to patch mine again, and I just wore it to church on Sunday, and I noticed a new hole in it.
It happened. So also the number one area that we've seen is right here. This is like where all of the patches go. That we've reinforced that specifically for that. But so we're trying to fit that need of like what's the, because there's a lot of situations even here where the Grumman, like the wind cuts right through it. First of all, it just, when it gets cold, you'll see guys doubling up the Grumman vest underneath it. It's just a commonplace thing. It's got a lot of down. It's warm for its weight class, but it's not very livable, if you will. And there's no chest pockets, so Mo's out. But
Don't own one, so we're good.
Mo is just anti-down in general.
I have been. I'm leaning more towards a mix.
I thought you were a weight guy. Down's the way to go.
That's the reason. I'm part of the reason I'm leaning that way. Also, with what I'm hearing about your sleeping bag is kind of convincing me to start looking that direction.
My thought is if you have good mid layers and you can throw on a rain jacket, which again, not Alaskan. I am not out there like you guys are. But for me, for most Western guys, the MO is I've got the puffy on. If it starts raining, I put a rain jacket over it because the puffy piece is really a sedentary piece, right? It's for glassing knobs. It's not, you don't wear it around. It's not, it is for a sedentary purpose. And this is kind of circling back to what I was saying. The design process is going through like almost everything is designed for the fun part of hunting, like the part you can show. Like I'm crossing a creek, I'm Mr. Bad A, I'm hiking up a mountain quick to cut off this elk. I gotta pit zip. I'm gonna stay cool and dry now. No, stop it.
Why are you trashing Brian like this, Chiam?
No, Brian's on my team, okay?
I don't know about that anymore.
It's you want to show the fun parts, like I was talking about. Like everyone lives for that moment where casually wipe the sweat off my brow and continue up the hill, trudging after my dangerous game. That's what everyone wants to see on the marketing purposes, right? And so inevitably what people want to see is what they do see. It's what you're presented, right? Because they know how to sell to you.
Very different videos, Chiam.
Okay. Anyways, it's the work, right? Like it's the grind, the grittiness, if you will.
Nice job on the recovering there.
That it's that stuff that you come to watch, basically. Like you like the kill shot, but it's the hard work, it's the Under Armour ethic. Like I'm Cam Hanes, I'm lifting weights. That's what sells because it's easy to film. What we all know as hunters, if you've ever had success, your successful hunts, very rarely do they come in the first day. Very rarely do they come after you crest the first glassing knob. It is hours and hours. I would venture so far to say that it's 80% of your successful hunt was spent behind some kind of glass on some kind of knob most of the time. Archery stuff, elk wise, is a little different. Still a lot of it spent behind glass, but you have a lot more motion. And that's where the movement layers, like also the time of year, like that's where that stuff starts to shine because you are mobile, you are in motion. But I think you guys can appreciate like most hunts, man. And for me, I see it a lot. It's such a perspective, like eye opener for me, because the stuff that I won't roll camera on is exactly the reason what we're building this around is the sedentary nature. It is the boring, the long, the tedious. That's the hardest, like mental discipline you have to have. Like killers know this. Like people that don't kill, like, I don't know where I'm messing up. I hiked my butt off. I hiked 14 miles in. What am I doing wrong? I hiked in and hiked out in 2 days. I'm doing all the hard work. Like, well, you're not sitting on your butt. The hardest work is the easiest work. And that's what we're building the system around, is that sedentary kind of ideal. Like we spend so much time either sleeping or glassing. Like, You need something that's livable and that keeps you warm no matter what. And so that's kind of the structure at which we're approaching this. And so I like to equate that into what I was talking about earlier. Like, you really are, like, you watch those cool sniping movies or read a Jack Carr book, if that's your thing, and you see these guys, and it's always about the least amount of motion, the more focus, and just paying attention to your surroundings over everything else. You're locked in. And so we're trying to create a system that inspires that. And so the argument on the other side of the camp, devil's advocate here, I'm anti-pit zips. I will scream it and die on that hill. I don't want them. I want more down. But the argument is that how many times, which I don't know the answer to this. This is like a rhetorical question for you guys to think about. But when you're in that Chris Kyle mode, right? Like, you're sniping, you're in the snipe mode, and you're just glassing, you're in the zone. Is there something right below the hill that you will spook by standing up, taking your jacket off, sitting back down? Is it the moment that something comes over the hill, sees you, skyline, and goes back over? Like, there's those moments that the argument from the other side of the camp is like, if I can regulate my temperature to keep myself from getting sweaty by simply just opening a vent, all the better, because I'm still in the zone. That's the argument. So,
yeah, but pit zips are like 80. I do like them on a lot of equipment, and I think they're most effective on a wind layer or a rain gear layer, but they're like 80% mental, man. You unzip that vent, and you at least convince yourself you're cooling off, even if you're not actually really much. Just sure, there's some airflow, but is it really making that big of a difference? Most of the time, it's not.
Surface area on your upper body is the front of your chest and your back, right? So for me, if I'm wearing a jacket, especially in a hunting situation, and I'm getting hot, even if I'm just sitting down, even if I'm sitting down without a pack on, let's say I'm in my Crazy Creek chair, for instance, because I love that thing and I take that thing everywhere. Sheep hunting,
carry that in the mountains, absolutely.
Yeah, sheep hunting, I don't care. Even in a situation like that, when I start to get to the point that I'm getting warm enough that I need to dump some heat and I've got a puffy on, the pit zips are not going to be enough. Like, if I'm that warm that I need to dump real heat, I'll either just undo the front main zipper, like I said earlier, and dump heat out the front and allow that circulation to get down underneath my pits and actually get circulation out and get that humidity out of there. Or I'll just take the jacket off entirely. And something else that I usually do too is, say I'm in the sheep hunting setting, I'll put a jacket on over my bino harness. I'll put on that puffy jacket over top of something so that it's not a permanent layer situation. It is easily torn off, stuffed back in my bag, and take off down the valley after something that just popped out, right? And that's probably better situated like for caribou or bear hunt, stuff like that, where things are a lot more dynamic. Sheep hunting wouldn't be a good example for that most of the time, although it could happen. But for the most part, a puffy layer for me is it's something that when I want a lot of heat, I want it to do that instantly. And when I'm ready to be done with it, I'm ready to either unzip the thing or just take it off entirely. Because, and maybe this is just my body type, and this is true of a lot of different things. We talk about footwear that's very specific to different people, and backpacks and frames that fit specific people and body types and anatomical structures. But insulation is very, very specific person to person. Different people are warmer sleepers or cooler sleepers, and that's why there's different ratings on sleeping bags, for instance. But puffy gear, there's really not a standardized system to grade the insulation level. There are fill powers, but that doesn't even indicate the amount of insulation that's there. That's the density of the insulation per a certain metric, but it doesn't tell you, that there are 800 fill puffy jackets that I would not take on a serious later fall hunt up here. But there are other jackets that are, 8 or 850 fill that are a whole lot more lofty, better fabrics, better design, and they are a whole lot warmer as a result of it. So for me, catering on the side of warmer is better. If that means the loss of pit zips, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. I might try the pit zips, I suppose, but I'm a lot less likely to than most, I think. And there's another thing that I was thinking of as you were talking a second ago. I have gotten into this space with puffy gear where I have gone for more durable products than not. And I know I mentioned the Grumman jacket from Stone. Okay, the thing is built like it's made out of Saran wrap. Okay, it's ultralight. it's super packable. I've had more than one sheep hunter client that has showed up with it, or mountain hunter client in general, and they show up with the Grumman stuff. It's good stuff, but everybody leaves with pinholes in it. Everybody. And I have never worn my Grumman jacket outside of around town, and I have more than a couple tenacious tape patches on it. You know, I went to, like I mentioned earlier, that Unk Foundry puffy jacket. It's kind of a hybrid idea. I went to that. And then I also have a Barney's Frontier Gear of Alaska Super Cub jacket. It is all synthetic fill insulation, but it's got the same, or it's got a similar 2-layer water resistant breathable shell on the outside. It's a lot more durable, a lot more. It's so durable to the point that I will wear that on a super cold day of deer hunting in Southeast where it's snowing all day long. And I'll wear that as my outer shell because I need something that is super warm, but that is durable. And I don't want to wear a raincoat over it to protect it, right? So it's difficult to do that with down. I think it's a lot easier to pull that off with a synthetic jacket because the heavier of a face fabric you put on down, the more you compact the insulation. And then what are we even doing here, right? But the idea of having an insulating jacket that I don't always have to be super concerned about the durability of is very appealing, especially if it's half the weight of a synthetic comparable option. So more durable paneling around the jacket is going to make it more attractive to guys like us up here. Even if I think you mentioned it's on the back in some places, I can see it's on the shoulders and on the top of the hood and on the forearms. You know, it looks like from the elbows down, but maybe like half a baffle's width of height around the hem of the jacket, just so that when you sit down in the rocks, it's not rubbing up in a thin spot up against the ground, right? That I think that would be a good idea too.
The entire back is designed like from bottom baffle to the top and into the hood. Because I mean, we know you're glassing. You lean up against stuff. You lay down, take a nap if you're me. Yeah. So all that's there. And that's not going away because it's a negligible weight difference. I mean, it's there for sure. And we took it out where you really don't need it. And we honestly did pick apart. We had everyone bring in their whatever you're running. Hey, bring it in. And almost every hole was in this area right here. There are a few, like you said, at the baffle portion of the back. Mine actually came from embers where I put my butt close to the fire, you turn your back to get your backside cold. And I caught a few embers in the backside from there. But less rough. I do baby my puffies. I'm from Texas, so the cold scares me. So I baby my puffies like it's like my life depends on it. And I still have holes in all of my puffies. So, trying to do stuff like that. And what you said was interesting about you never know what insulation you get. We're actually talking about sending it to the same lab to have it certified and tested with a degree rating in the same fashion if they're willing to do it because no one does it. So we're like, hey, if you can do this, because I think the whole thing is they have a copper dummy that's got instrument readouts, right? The problem will be, can you put how do you measure that if the feet are exposed, if the legs are exposed? Are you just doing the jack? Can you cut the mannequin in half? Like, what are the sensors? What are the readouts? We got to figure all that out with them, but we are trying to get to be one of the first jackets to do a actual rating and say like, hey, this is rated 2 because of XYZ. The other thing, you can figure it out with jackets. It's just like an algebraic like mess. It's almost like running a formula because you have to figure out your fill, like, first of all, if it's like 800, 650, whatever, your fill power, and then you got to figure out the ounces and then put those together to figure out your insulation. And then there's no real guide. There's no like, this is a 7 on a scale of 10. It's just like, well, I know that this hyper down is like really, really warm because I put it on with a buddy. So I'm going to go off of that and do that math. And then, okay, this one's like half of that. So it's going to be half as warm. And then it's also baffle placement, baffle construction, something else we've done. I don't have my Grumman here, of course. But I've got these studio lights in here, right? So we'll kind of flip them upside down, put a puffy on the top of it. You can see in typical baffle construction, a centimeter line on every baffle where there's nothing. So this is the same baffle system we did on the sleeping bag for the same reason. It almost doesn't look as puffy. You wouldn't believe that this, like seeing it on me, this isn't for aesthetics. This is for function, but it's not as puffy. It's not as Michelin man looking because of our baffle system. It's overlapped so that there's no lines. There is no centimeter of God's heavenly light beaming through the puffy. So it's like a dark expanse. And that's what you want when you hold it up to the light. And so that's a big reason why we're doing this. And we're actually like, from an aesthetic standpoint, we're like, are people gonna like, how much do we have to educate people to make them understand that this has more down than anything they have? It just doesn't look like it. So we're like struggling with that fact right now. Cause if you see a picture of this, you're like, that doesn't look warm at all. Cause we're used to that if the baffle starts and ends exactly where that seam is, it pushes out. If they can fall into the next baffle, everything uniforms down. And that's kind of what this is looking like. And so this is designed like that. And we're kind of worried right now from a marketing perspective. Like people are like, oh, that looks flat. I'm like, yeah, but it's for a benefit. So we're going to have to educate some people on that. But right now, this jacket has a ton of down in it. I won't get into the nitty gritty, but it's the same fill power as our sleeping bag and the ounces of down. And this one, I can't remember exactly, so I'm not going to lie, but we're upping it even more for the next round. Because of what you were saying, like the whole point, if you're going to be sedentary, you want this thing you put it on as an oven. And you got it. Like the point is to almost be like, dang, I got to take this thing off. I'd rather have that than be like, oh, my puffy, just sitting cutting it today. So also to your point, I'm legit pitting out and I have these pit zips wide open, front wide open. It ain't doing a dang thing. I'm going to have to take this thing off in order to, I'm soaking through my shirt here. I'm going to have to take this thing off in order to regulate temperature. So I think pit zips, Jamie, if we could clip that and send it to Bryce, let's do that. Bryce needs to see this. So yeah, pit zips. I'm still a no, hard no.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the pants. Are they full zip? Zip them on, take on and off with the boot while you're wearing your boots?
Yeah. So full zip.
All right, because I'm not buying a pair of puffy pants if they're not full zip.
No, and I have Western mountaineering pants that I love because of their weight. Because despite the hard time I've given you, I'm in the same camp. I count ounces because I have to, like, my base weight's always 35 pounds above whatever anyone else is carrying. Because of my zoom lens, my tripod, my extra lens, my 2 camera, like all this stuff, I'm always coming in heavier. So I really do like legit have to count ounces. So I'm nerding out. That's the excuse I tell myself to spend the money on Dyneema. I'm like, well, I carry camera gear, so I deserve it. But yeah, so full zip, same reinforcement like we were talking about. There's actually not a ton of space on the pants that isn't reinforced, which I think is a good thing. Because that is the butt's one place that I have always got holes in my puffy pants. Because it's just like I can only baby them so long before I'm away from my glassing pad or away from my chair. And like if I want to sit, I want to sit, and I just do. And then I end up putting a hole. Like even pine cones. I had a pine cone put a hole through my Western mountaineering ones. So they're not very durable. So hopefully that solves that issue. We still have some testing to do with those puffy pants because winter still will not hit here in Montana. So it's like a sauna if you step out of the door in full puffy right now.
Well, a month ago we could have done some serious testing.
Yeah, it has been quite the opposite type of winter up here for us, but yeah. Well, I think that's very exciting. I'm glad to see some of the things that are going on there. Obviously, there's more going on behind the scenes that we can't or won't get into right now, but it'll come down the line. But yeah, that's all very interesting for us. We like gear nerd type stuff. We try not to get off on it too much on the podcast, but inevitably it pops up here and there. And
this might be a two-parter.
Yeah, I was just going to say that this has ended up going a whole lot longer than average for us. This is probably the longest one that we ever recorded, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Oh, dude.
It's 10 o'clock here.
Yeah. I am sorry. I didn't even know what time it was here.
You know me. I did the same thing in camp. I'd stay up talking all night, and the next morning be like, "Oh, I hate you, Dalton." Oh,
Split this into 20-minute segments and do 2 episodes a week.
Just get us through to July.
Year done. Let's just get the year out of the way.
Yeah. Actually, we're probably going to split this up and do it 1 week and then the next week instead of.
That's probably a good idea.
Yeah, because usually we put out an episode every other week. And then we leave the in-between weeks open for an additional show or a part 2. So that's probably what we'll do with this one.
And we got a real good clear delineation there.
Yeah. We can split from your personal background into the gear 2 weeks apart. So we'll record a little break in between there for a part 1 and 2. So, well, I don't want to keep you up any longer, Chiam. I do appreciate it. Mo, you got anything else to add before we wrap it up here?
I mean, keep going on about gear for forever, but you got to stop sometime.
Yep. At some point, we got to go to work tomorrow. So well, I appreciate it, Chiam. This has been a lot of fun. We will undoubtedly have you on again, probably not in the too distant future. And we appreciate all of the insight to Peax, and we're excited for your new role with the company and for the things that we've seen come out of Peax so far and where we're kind of going in the future. There's a whole lot more topic that we could get into discussing about floorless, non-freestanding that we didn't even get into. So that's something else that we'll have to come on and argue about later, because our listeners know that Mo and I have a disposition that there is a time and a place and a situation that's perfect for many different things.
Yeah.
And that there is almost never a one trick pony that'll do everything, especially in the varying environments that we have up here and how wet the ground is in half the state.
Yeah.
So that's a whole different thing.
Unless it's a Hilleberg solo.
Yeah. Except at that point, you're just going to be carrying 6 pounds for a tent as wide as this desk. But it is strong and it is dry.
You have nothing to worry about in that tent. Anyway.
It is strong and it's dry.
Yeah.
But
maybe the next podcast will be accompanied by a in the field video where we can go out and put some of this to the test, because I've personally never been in those heavy freestanding tents, and I don't want to speak until I am in one in some inclement weather. So I think we should do that. Do a little in the field.
There's pros and cons to both of them, but I do get a lot of that questioning from people that we know that I have used the Peax TP, and as soon as I bought that TP, it was instant questions from a lot of people in our friend group and group of guys that we kind of run with, and it was always the question of, well, how do you stay dry in that stupid thing? There's not even a floor in it. And now that I even have a floor, it's not a traditional tub style floor. And so what we're used to up here is just very different from that lightweight, minimalist, floorless type shelter. But there are advantages to both. And, but that's a topic for a different time. So anyway, I think we'll put a bow on this. Folks, thanks for hanging in there and listening to, I guess this will be part 2 of the podcast with Chiam Loyd. So, Chiam, tell the listeners where they can find you if they want to stalk you online.
Okay. Mainly just Instagram. You can keep an eye out on the Peax YouTube channel as well for some of my work. But Instagram at Chiam_films. And yeah, every once in a while I'll feel the urge to post on there. So feel free to follow along.
Excellent. Yeah, just post and ghost. Well,
pretty much my MO. Yeah.
Well, thanks for listening, folks. We hope you've enjoyed it. If you do have questions for us here, you can email them to us. Go find our website at thegreatalaskahuntingcompany.com and hit the contact button to send us an email. Hopefully, we'll get back to you at some point. We are behind on a couple of those, but we'll have an upcoming episode that'll address some of those things. And you can also find us on social media. You search our names on Instagram, and we'll pop up in there somewhere. The best way that you can help us promote the show is send it to a friend or leave us a 5-star rating or positive written review on whatever platform you're listening to us on. We would greatly appreciate it. We don't ask for anything else at this point to support the show except those things. So until next time, folks, thanks for listening. Tread lightly, but don't tread well. See you next time.